The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the suburban neighborhood of Cedar Grove, where Michael Cooper had carved out a life he believed was steady and secure. At 38, he was the embodiment of the American dream. With a stable job as a software engineer and a beautiful wife, Emily, he had thought that love and loyalty were the cornerstones of his existence. He worked tirelessly, often taking extra hours at the office to ensure that they both could enjoy the comforts of life. However, the sacrifices he willingly made for his family would soon eclipse the warmth of his home, turning it into a cold chamber of betrayal. Michael had always trusted Emily. Their love had been built on years of shared laughter, dreams for the future, and the simple joy of companionship. But the illusions began to crack when he noticed subtle changes in her behavior. The scent of unfamiliar perfume lingered in the air when she returned home late. Her eyes, once filled with warmth, now seemed distant and preoccupied. At first, he dismissed his growing anxieties, attributing them to stress from work. He couldn't accept that the woman he adored could betray him. Yet, the gnawing doubt festered like an unhealed wound, each day amplifying the dread coursing through his veins. Then came the day that dismantled his world. After a particularly grueling week, Michael decided to surprise Emily with dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant. He envisioned her radiant smile as they toasted to their life together. When he arrived, however, the sight that met him at the dimly lit establishment shattered his heart. There, at a corner table, was Emily, laughing softly, her hand resting affectionately on the arm of another man, Jake, a colleague from her office, known for his charming smile and disarming charisma. The moment felt surreal, as if he were observing a scene from a cruel movie. Michael's breath hitched in his throat, and his fists clenched involuntarily. It was as if time had stopped, allowing the weight of reality to crush him. He stood by the entryway, frozen in disbelief, his heart pounding like a war drum. How could she? In that moment, everything he had sacrificed for their love felt utterly worthless. With a surge of adrenaline, he approached their table. Emily caught sight of him first, her face transforming from joy to sheer horror. Jake, oblivious to the impending storm, grinned at Michael. "Hey man, what's up?" he said, his voice thick with insensitivity. Michael's gaze shifted from Jake to Emily's stunned expression, and he saw the shame flicker across her face. "How could you?" he managed to spit out, his voice laced with anger and pain. The restaurant was suffused with tension as patrons turned to witness the unfolding drama. Michael's heart raced as he fought to contain his emotions, anger pulsing through him in waves. Really, Emily? A romantic rendezvous? A weekend getaway? While I grind myself to dust for this family? His words resonated with bitter clarity, slicing through the blissful bubble she had constructed in which they both lived. "Mike, please," Emily began, but he interrupted her. "Please what? I see you sitting here with him. You think you can just betray everything we built? This is beyond forgiveness." Michael's mind raced, realizing that this moment was but the tip of an iceberg. The humiliation surged as tears welled in Emily's eyes. He had exposed her, raw and vulnerable, in front of friends and strangers alike. "Get up! We're leaving!" he bellowed, locking onto her gaze with a fierceness that made his chest swell with a conflicting mix of pain and rage. She hesitated, glancing at Jake, who still seemed bewildered by the turn of events. "Don't even think about it. Your choice was made long ago. Now, let's go," he commanded, his voice low and fierce. Outside the restaurant, the evening air felt cooler, almost refreshing against the furnace of his fury. Emily stumbled behind him, her usual confidence shattered like glass underfoot. Her desperation flared in the night air as she grabbed his arm. "Michael, I'm sorry. I made a mistake," she pleaded, her voice cracking under the weight of reality. He turned to her, locking eyes that had once held warmth but were now pools of betrayal. "A mistake? This is more than a mistake, Em. This is the culmination of everything we had, reduced to ashes." The fury inside him began to harden into something unyielding. Emotions roiled, transforming into a quiet resolve as he envisioned the future ahead. He would not be her victim, nor would he allow her to sink him into despair. Stepping back, Michael took a deep breath. feeling the crisp air rush into his lungs. This was a turning point, and it would change everything. He would unravel the web of deceit that entwined him and Emily, while simultaneously understanding one crucial thing. She would regret this day, and he would ensure it. He would become a force that would not merely retaliate, but dismantle her world, brick by brick. With newfound clarity, he headed home, his mind racing with plans. Michael was done being the good husband who worked tirelessly just to be left in the dark. He envisioned a life where he controlled his destiny, a life free from the weight of Emily's betrayal. That night, as he lay in bed, the silence pulsated with a violent kind of energy. His heart no longer ached, but beat with purpose. Tomorrow, their world would witness the consequences of her betrayal. Revenge would be swift and relentless. The following morning, Michael awoke to the harsh light filtering through the curtains, illuminating the remnants of his shattered reality. He felt a weight lifting from his chest, replaced by a steely determination that burned brighter with each passing moment. He was done mourning the loss of a marriage built on lies. Instead, he would build a fortress of retribution, one that would shield him from the storm brewing outside. With a coffee mug in hand, he began devising a plan. He meticulously documented Emily's financial transactions, logging the lavish dinners and secret weekends with Jake. Her credit card statements displayed a conspicuous pattern of spending that screamed infidelity. Each purchase was like a dagger to his pride, igniting a fury in him that was both thrilling and liberating. He realized he possessed the tools necessary to dismantle the facade of their life together. Weeks slipped by as Michael carefully laid the groundwork for his revenge. He met with a divorce attorney, a sharp-witted woman named Lisa, who quickly grasped the gravity of his situation. "You have a solid case," she said, reviewing the evidence he presented. "Your wife's spending on her affair. It can be framed as financial misconduct. It won't help her in court." The prospect of turning Emily's misdeeds against her filled him with a grim satisfaction. "I want to ruin her," he stated bluntly, a cold smile creeping to his face as the reality of his intentions settled in. Michael felt a strange exhilaration as the machinations of his plan commenced. He confronted Jake, sending him an anonymous message with screenshots of the transactions and proof of their affair. "Enjoy your moments together," he wrote, a sardonic chuckle bubbling up inside him, "while it lasts." The response from Jake's shocked silence was swift. Within hours, the man was on the phone, desperately calling Emily, demanding answers. Michael reveled in the chaos he had unleashed. That Friday, the storm finally broke. Michael had orchestrated a family gathering under the guise of sharing some news. He invited close friends, hoping to unveil the truth in a setting teeming with familiar faces. As everyone settled in, Michael conjured an air of calm, masking the tempest swirling just beneath the surface. He waited for the perfect moment, giving Emily a chance to bask in her usual charm, unaware of the impending reckoning. When he decided the moment was right, Michael stood up, raising his glass, the room falling silent. "I have something to say." The hushed murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. He felt the eyes of his friends on him, concerned but curious, not yet aware of what he was about to unveil. "Emily and I have had our ups and downs. We've talked about the usual struggles of marriage, but there's something that's been nagging at me, a truth that I can no longer keep hidden." He paused, observing the growing confusion on Emily's face as she shifted uneasily in her seat. "While I busted my ass working extra hours for this family, Emily decided to spend my hard-earned money on romantic weekends with Jake." With that, he projected the images of Emily's extravagant expenditures onto the wall behind them, each one a badge of dishonor that exemplified her betrayal. Gasps erupted as friends reeled from the revelations. "Emily," he continued, voice steady and powerful, "you've spent thousands on a weekend getaway and dinners, indulging in a life that had nothing to do with the commitment we shared. Everyone deserves to know what kind of person you truly are." Emily went pale, her hands trembling in disbelief as the reality of the situation sunk in. "Michael, please, this isn't fair," she screamed. but her voice was swallowed up by the collective shock of the room. Friends who once ambled through life with levity now looked at her with disdain. "And you, Jake," Michael added, turning his attention to the man who was about to lose everything. "You think this fancy smiles and charm will save you? You can't buy loyalty, and now you'll learn what happens when you betray a trust." Jake's face had turned an ashen gray, the color of a man who realized he had played the fool. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Michael felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. Emily's pretense crumbled, and panic etched itself into her expression. Her carefully constructed life started to disintegrate in front of all their friends. "You're both pathetic," he pronounced, enjoying the momentum of his revelation. "Enjoy the consequences of your choices. You'll need to face each other now without the comfort of my money." In that moment of fragility, as Emily protested with desperate cries, begging, accusing, and thrashing against the walls of betrayal, Michael felt satisfaction flooding through him like a warm tide. No one stepped forward to comfort her. The laughter that had echoed around her just moments before now fell ominously mute. Through the chaos, he realized how several eyes were turned away from her, shaking heads and whispered judgments floating through the air. After the fallout that evening, Michael stood tall as he drove home, feeling almost untouchable. The house was empty now, the weight of Emily's absence heavy yet liberating. Michael was determined to carry the same icy resolve into the courtroom, his attorney orchestrating the final act of their tragic play. Weeks turned to months, and while the legal battles began, Emily's reputation crumbled, each hearing exposing more of her deceit. Friends began to avoid her, further isolating her from any semblance of support. Jake, once the dashing outsider, now sat twirling his phone at the very same gatherings, suffering the consequences of his involvement with the other woman. Just as Michael had envisioned, Jake slowly faded into obscurity, discarded by those who had once cheered for him. In the final hearing, Michael had grown into a force unrecognizable from the man who had once blindly loved. The judge granted him full custody of their children and the majority of their assets. Emily sat across the table, head bowed in defeat, as he reveled in the ultimate triumph. He had taken charge of his life, tearing through the fabric of deceit that had once shrouded him. As they stepped outside the courthouse, sunlight flooded the space. The world was brighter, the air sharper as Michael stepped forward, now completely free from Emily's toxic grasp. She tried to reach out once more, but he was uncompromising, ready to close the chapter. "Michael," she whispered, choking on her fear and regret. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" But he wasn't listening anymore. "Spare me your apologies. They won't repair what you've broken," he said coldly, turning away with a new lease on life. In that moment, he felt no pity, only a sense of liberation that screamed louder than her remorse. He knew the power he held, and with renewed strength, Michael Cooper walked away from the ashes of his past, a man reborn, left only with the lessons of resilience and revenge. Months flickered by, like pages torn hastily from a calendar, as the aftermath of Michael's transformation began to solidify into the fabric of reality. He no longer recognized the man that had agonized over Emily's betrayal. That Michael had been replaced by one entirely different, steely, and sharp-edged. The once muted corners of his life now sparked with ambition, aggression, and a newfound clarity. No longer a mere victim, he had harnessed the pain, rewriting the narrative in his favor. Michael dived headfirst into his work, pouring hours into projects that had once languished in the shadows. His promotion to lead developer felt like the first tangible reward for years of hard labor. He pushed his team harder, inspired them to innovate, and marveled at the successes they collectively achieved. Money poured in, and with it came freedom that he had not thought possible. It was during one late evening at the office that he bumped into Sarah, a new hire with an enchanting spirit and an unapologetic enthusiasm about technology. They struck up a conversation where he discovered that her companionship came with an absence of cynicism. The warmth in her laugh created ripples in the steadfast ice he had encased his heart in. and gradually a bond blossomed. Their friendship quickly flourished into something more, each meeting masked under the guise of late-night project updates as sparks of attraction ignited between them. One evening, Michael suggested dinner after hours, the air laden with unspoken sentiments. Over plates of spaghetti and bottles of wine, the tension escalated, coaxing Michael out of the shell built under the weight of past betrayals. They shared stories, dreams, and fears, and with each truth laid bare, the healing continued to unfurl within him. It was exhilarating and terrifying, feeling the layers of hurt and grief slowly peel back. Yet, while his personal life began to regain color, the shadow of Emily's deceit still loomed large. At times, he'd receive calls from their children's school, prompting discussions about her erratic behavior. Their children felt the ripples of turbulence as tensions played out in their mother's life. Michael heard stories of their mother avoiding social situations, and her friends commenting on the isolation she had chosen since the divorce. As the holidays approached, Michael sensed an opportunity to reinforce his regained strength. He decided it was time not only to secure the safety and happiness of his children, but also to confront the remnants of the messy life that Emily had left behind. Squaring his shoulders with determination, he reached out for a meeting with Emily. Sitting in a neutral cafe, a place haunted by memories and fledgling dreams, he awaited her arrival with an intense sense of purpose. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and he recognized the mix of vulnerability and remorse reflected in her gaze. The ambivalence was palpable as she hesitated before sliding into the booth opposite him, her demeanor fortified by the stark contrast to the proud woman she once was. "Michael," her voice trembled as she sought to break the silence. "I didn't think you'd agree to meet." "Neither did I, honestly," he replied evenly. "But there are things we need to discuss. For the kids." He felt a surge of authority as he spoke, aware of the control he finally possessed in their dynamic. Emily nodded slowly, visibly bracing herself from the intensity of their past. "I wish I could take it all back, Mike. I know I've lost everything. My family, my friends." "You had every right to expose me," she confessed, a tremor in her voice echoing through the air like a haunting. "I didn't just expose you, Emily," he countered, leaning forward slightly, the words heavy with conviction. "I dismantled the very life you betrayed, and while you may feel remorse now, I want you to understand that your choices have consequences." Beneath the weight of those words, Emily's defenses crumbled further. She began sharing her perception of their relationship. Her struggles to balance motherhood and her own ambitions had twisted into justification for her affair. It was raw and twisted, yet he felt the urge to smirk at how the true meaning of her betrayal began to dawn on her, an affirmation of the emotional turmoil he'd faced. "Michael, I'm going to make changes," she promised, determination seeping into her voice. "I'll focus on the kids and get help." "I can't expect them to understand if I don't understand myself first." "I hope you do," he replied, treating her fragile words with caution. "Our children deserve better than to bear the weight of your mistakes. Just remember, I'm not going to be an emotional safety net for you anymore." In that moment, he savored the power imbued in his words, a dizzying reminder that he needed no validation from her. He had risen beyond her reliant grasp, crafting a new identity, suffused with strength and resolution. As their conversation unfolded, he felt a sense of closure, growing roots deep within, an unshakable intuition that freed him more than any apology could. The morning after their meeting, Michael sat in the sunlight filtering through his kitchen window, sipping coffee with their children as they animatedly chatted about their plans for the holidays. The dynamic had shifted. He released the burdens of Emily's choices and replaced them with the joy of being present in their lives. Suddenly, a familiar tune began to play on the radio, one they danced to during happier times. He felt a pang of nostalgia but drowned it with fierce determination. The air was charged with life and the laughter of his children, a symphony he had only begun to appreciate. "Dad, can we decorate the tree today?" His daughter Clara squealed excitedly. "Absolutely. Let's turn this house into a winter wonderland," he replied enthusiastically, the warmth in his heart swamping out any residual bitterness clinging to his psyche. As their decorations sprawled across the living room, the past faded further into an echo, leaving behind a blank canvas full of potential. Their bond strengthened in the glow of twinkling lights and the scent of pine. Michael reveled in the affections of his children, embracing his role as a single father with an unwavering resolve. Yet, somewhere in the recesses of his mind, a tiny ember still glowed, burning with the desire to see justice served. He glanced at the clock, realizing it was almost time for the annual holiday party at his office. This year, he would attend without the shadow of Emily hanging over him. As he prepared for the event, he experienced a unique thrill. Tonight, he would introduce Sarah, marking a new chapter in his life. He felt elated at the prospect of being a man in control of his own destiny, someone not stricken by loss, but thriving within new possibilities. At the party, surrounded by laughter and festive cheer, Michael's heart raced as he held Sarah's hand firmly, feeling the warmth radiating between them. They kissed silently beneath the mistletoe, and Michael knew in that fleeting moment that the darkness had finally lifted from his life, leaving behind a horizon illuminated with promise. But even as he danced and celebrated with Sarah, the ember of his desire for retribution still flickered. It was just waiting for the right moment to ignite into flames, reminding him that he would not allow Emily or anyone to dictate the terms of his happiness ever again. The weeks that followed the office party were transformational. Michael found himself fully immersed in his new normal, a life marked by laughter, shared dreams, and the warmth of a relationship that felt both exhilarating and refreshing. Sarah complimented him in ways he hadn't imagined possible, offering a supportive presence that allowed him to flourish beyond the shadows of his past. Together, they crafted a cozy routine, filled with evenings of cooking, laughter, and the kind of intimacy Michael had long thought lost. However, amid the softness of his new life, the ember of revenge remained, smoldering quietly in the background. The time for sentimentality had long passed where Emily was concerned. Michael resolved that even as he grew more content, he'd not abandon the principle of accountability, especially when it came to ensuring that the consequences of betrayal didn't simply fade into memory. One freezing afternoon, as snow adorned Cedar Grove like a fluffy white blanket, Michael received a call from Lisa, the attorney who had helped him navigate his tumultuous divorce. Her voice was brisk and professional, as she relayed information that forced a surge of adrenaline through him. I've tracked down some interesting developments regarding Emily's financial activities. We might have grounds for further actions, she announced, her tone hinting at unvoiced excitement. His heart raced. What do you mean? Emily has begun accruing debts at an alarming rate, exceeding thousands of dollars. She's also taken out loans that I suspect she has no ability to pay back. It seems like she's trying to maintain a lifestyle she can't afford, Lisa explained, the implications of her words hanging heavily between them. Are you saying she's going deeper into financial trouble? Michael asked, his mind racing with possibilities. I believe this could allow us to compel her to take financial responsibility for her actions during the divorce. We could petition for a reevaluation of your settlement due to her financial mismanagement. It doesn't look good for her in court. If she's drowning in debt, Lisa elaborated, clearly excited at the prospect of rallying for justice on Michael's behalf. A rush of satisfaction coursed through him. This was precisely the kind of leverage he had hoped to seize, a way to ensure that Emily faced the consequences of her dishonesty. Let's do it, Lisa. I want to own the narrative, and I want her to understand that her actions have real repercussions. Understood. I'll prepare the necessary paperwork and we'll move forward swiftly, Lisa assured him. That evening, as Michael sat on the couch with Sarah, her laughter filling the air over hot cocoa, the weight of his decisions loomed heavy in his mind. He shared nothing of his plans with her, wanting to protect the sweetness of their time together. Yet, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of exhilaration. Exposing Emily's financial missteps had the potential to reshape not just his life, but also his children's future. Weeks turned to a month filled with court hearings, financial disclosures, and mounting tension. Each time he entered the courtroom, he recognized the familiar thrill of power, the same feeling he had tasted the day he presented Emily's affair to their friends. It fueled him. His anger transformed into resolve and a sense of righteousness. When the day of the hearing finally came, Michael arrived with Lisa, both of them meticulously prepared. The courtroom was modest. It brimmed with tension and the murmurs of onlookers anticipating the proceedings. When Emily entered, her demeanor was noticeably different. Gone was the confident woman who had once dismissed his pleas. In her eyes, he saw a flicker of desperation, a palpable acknowledgement of the sinking ship that had become her life. As the hearing commenced, Lisa presented their case with meticulous precision, detailing how Emily had squandered savings while indulging in her lavish lifestyle, all while neglecting her familial duties. The judge regarded Emily with a stern expression, peppering her with questions that seemed to strip bare any defenses she might have hoped to present. "Ms. Cooper, can you explain the financial records that indicate repeated excessive spending?" the judge inquired, his tone authoritative. Emily faltered, shifting in her seat. "I had business expenses and personal obligations," she started, her voice weak under scrutiny. Michael sat silently, watching the unraveling, relishing the moment. Everything she had built, both financially and socially, was crumbling with her feeble defenses. As the testimony continued, the evidence punched holes into her credibility, her lavish expenses and lack of pragmatism, a stark contrast against the portrait she was attempting to paint. Finally, after hours, the judge concluded the hearing. He announced, "In light of your financial irresponsibility, I'll strongly consider altering the terms of your divorce settlement to reflect these developments. Financial stability for the children must come first." As the verdict settled in the air, Michael felt a surge of triumph. Emily's expression morphed from feigned confidence to stark disbelief, a silent scream of realization echoing in the room around them. As they exited the courtroom, a reporter who had been waiting outside asked for a brief comment. Michael seized the moment. "This isn't merely about finances, it's about accountability," he declared, the conviction in his voice underscoring every word. "Everyone deserves to face the consequences for their actions, and today my children deserve to know their mother will be held to the same standards as the rest of us." Their words reverberated through the press and social media alike, swiftly painting Emily in a light too dim for her confidence to flicker. Back at home, Michael could finally breathe, feeling a weight lift as elation coursed through his veins. A financial reckoning had arrived for Emily, a stark reminder of her choices. He smiled, realizing he had not only taken control of his life, but had chosen a path paved with justice for his children. Michael turned to Sarah later that evening, and with a beatific smile, he said, "I've fought this battle for my future and my kids." "I knew you would," Sarah responded warmly. You've always been strong, Michael." As they embraced, the ember of revenge transformed into a warm glow of resolution. In that moment, he understood that life's trials had cemented his resilience, forging a new man who wouldn't merely survive, but would thrive. Together, Michael and Sarah stepped into the kitchen, laughing over spilt cocoa and lingering warmth, sharing a sense of renewal, flashes of light illuminating a path forward, where trust and love flourished, unshackled. The hardest chapters of his past had sewn the fabric of his future, and he was ready to embrace every moment, now unguarded but infinitely stronger. The days following the court's decision brought a palpable change in the atmosphere of Michael's life. Though the echoes of Emily's betrayal still resounded, they were now muffled by the sound of laughter and warmth that filled his home. The children appeared freer, less burdened by the weight of their mother's deceit. Each evening they shared family dinners filled with joy, moments that Michael had nearly forgotten existed before the storm. Michael's bond with Sarah deepened organically, melding companionship and camaraderie into something genuine and lasting. They explored the city, indulging in new restaurants, visiting art galleries, and hiking local trails as snow melted into vibrant spring blooms. Sarah's laughter poured sunshine into the corners of his mind that had been dark for too long. She became a touchstone of joy, prompting laughter to rise as warm as the sun in his chest. Yet, as he basked in the beauty of his newfound life, another layer of emotional complexity brewed beneath the surface. With Emily embroiled in mounting financial struggles and her reputation in tatters, Michael felt an odd mixture of empathy and satisfaction. He knew her challenges were a direct consequence of her choices, yet seeing the woman he once loved dissolve into someone unrecognizable pricked at his conscience. One Saturday afternoon, as Michael and Sarah prepared to host a gathering for friends, the phone rang, interrupting the buzz of their anticipation. The sight of Emily's name flickering on the screen twisted his stomach. Curiosity mixed with a bit of apprehension bubbled to the surface. "Should I take this?" he asked Sarah, who looked at him with a soft yet guarded expression. "You need to decide what feels right for you. Just remember who she is now," Sarah counseled. He exhaled slowly, the weight of his decision heavy, yet unmistakable. With a nod, he answered, bringing the phone to his ear. "Emily," he said simply, testing the waters of this unexpected conversation. "Michael, I need to talk." Her voice was small, laced with vulnerability that seemed sincere yet tinged with desperation. "Can we meet?" "It's urgent," Michael hesitated. "Why not just share what you need?" he replied, unwilling to plunge into the emotional turmoil they'd once shared. No, please. It's about the kids. There are things I need to clarify," she stammered, a hint of panic surfacing. His resolve began to waver. Against his better judgment, he agreed to meet. The cafe was dimly lit, bustling with life as people mingled and laughter echoed against the walls. He arrived first, the scent of coffee wafting around him, reminding him of countless moments spent here during calmer times. Emily walked in moments later, looking disheveled, the weight of her circumstances carved into her features. Her usual confident demeanor had been replaced by a haunting fragility, and Michael sensed she was hanging on to whatever remaining dignity she could muster. "Thanks for meeting me," she murmured as she took a seat. Her hands fidgeted with the corners of a paper napkin, betraying her nerves. "What's on your mind, Emily?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral but firm. "I've been thinking a lot about how everything unfolded," she began. But he interrupted her, wanting no pretense. "It's quite clear how it unfolded. You made your choices to disregard our life together, your marriage, and our children's well-being." He was sharp, every word deliberate. "I know, and I can't take it back," she spoke quietly, almost defeated. "But I've realized that I need help. I can't face everything alone. My debts are piling up and I'm afraid of losing everything. The kids. My chance to be a mother." The tremor in her voice hinted at something deeper, a glimpse of the frightened woman beneath layers of betrayal. The sight of the woman who once shattered his life, now pleading for help, caused a swell of conflicting emotions within him. "What is it you want from me?" he asked, hardening his heart against empathy. "I need to find a way to regain some stability. Maybe you could help me." "I don't want to drag the kids down further," she implored, desperation etched in her face. "Help you? After everything you've done?" he balked. "Why should I? You unmade this family, Emily. You spun a web of lies while I carried the weight of our lives. You have brought this upon yourself." Tears welled in her eyes, shimmering with pain and loss. "I'm not asking for charity, but maybe some guidance. You have legal knowledge now. I need help sorting through my financial mess. I need to make things right. For them." Michael's heart wrestled with the human instinct for compassion, even as his mind replayed years of heartache and betrayal. He thought of how easily she had discarded their life together, and how she intended to use those same threads to weave a new pattern, now at the expense of their children. His demeanor softened just a little. "What makes you think I'd be willing to help someone who destroyed my trust?" "Because I'm their mother." "Because I still love them," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The sincerity in her words felt like a dagger, piercing through the cold facade he had worked so hard to build. "Your love ought to have manifested differently when you had the chance. Choices have consequences. You need to own that." He took a deep breath, weighing his options. But for the kids' sake, I can offer you guidance. I'll connect you with some financial resources. But remember, this is not about us. A glimmer of relief flickered in her eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by pent-up guilt. Thank you. I'll take whatever help I can get. Truly. The conversation drifted into the realm of logistics, and it dawned on Michael that despite their complicated past, he could still strive to be a decent father in front of his children. The commitment he shared with them wouldn't be tarnished by Emily's choices. As they wrapped up and parted ways, he sensed an odd weight lift from his shoulders. He had not fully forgiven Emily, nor would he likely ever completely forget the pain she had inflicted. Yet there was strength in this decision. By offering limited assistance without descending into emotional entanglement, he had reclaimed a portion of his narrative. Returning home, the embrace of his children awaited him, their laughter echoing through the halls. Sarah was preparing dinner, her spirit infectious. In that moment, he realized transformation could take many forms, and rebuilding trust took time, not just with others, but within oneself. Emily would face her consequences alone, but he would continue to devote himself to being the father his kids needed. That night, as he shared stories over dinner, he quietly reveled in the purity of their laughter and the flourishing love he was cultivating. The past lingered like a shadow, but Michael understood the importance of moving forward with strength, generosity, and unwavering conviction. Each day was a new opportunity, a fresh page turning quietly into a powerful story unfolding before him. A story that was ultimately entirely his own. As winter waned into spring, the air grew infused with promise and renewal. Michael's commitment to his children and burgeoning relationship with Sarah became a canvas for healing. Day by day, he painted over the remnants of his past, layering each brushstroke with newfound resilience and joy. The trauma of his marriage was still present, a shadow on occasion, but the vibrant colors of life were slowly eclipsing it. In the days following his conversation with Emily, he carried forward the spirit of accountability, not just in their interactions, but also in his parenting. He was determined to shield his children from the chaos of their mother's mistakes, offering them a foundation built on love, stability, and mutual respect. The rhythm of their family life thrummed with positivity. The kids thrived in the atmosphere, shedding the nervous tension that had lingered for too long. On a particularly bright Sunday, Michael gathered Clara and Jake in the backyard for an impromptu picnic. They filled the space with laughter as they spread out a blanket and enjoyed sandwiches under the warmth of the sun. "What's next on our adventure list, Dad?" Clara asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I was thinking we could visit that new science museum downtown next weekend." "You two ready to explore some dinosaurs?" Michael replied, grinning widely. Their enthusiasm was infectious, sweetening the memories of a once-distant family. After the picnic, as the children dove into a game of tag, Michael found himself momentarily drifting into thoughts about Emily. It had been a few weeks since their tense cafe meeting, and he had wondered whether she was heeding his advice regarding her finances. While sympathy welled within him, he also recognized that each decision was a step toward her growth, or, potentially, her failure. He hoped she was making strides for the sake of their children. Finally, spring arrived in full bloom, and with it came an unexpected call from Emily. The timing couldn't have been more ironic. He had just finished a long day at work and was about to settle down for dinner with Sarah and the kids. "Michael," Emily's voice came through the phone, a tremor of uncertainty threading through her words. "Can we talk? I have some news." "What kind of news?" He kept his tone cool, refusing to let the emotional roller coaster of their past sway him. "I'm in a better place now," she started, her words clipped as if she needed to prepare herself. "I've enrolled in a financial management program and started seeing a counselor regularly. I'm making real changes, and I want to regain your trust for the kids' sake." "Trust doesn't come as easily as that, Emily," he said steadily. "You ripped that apart when you made your choices. I can't just hand it to you without time and effort from your side." "I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness right away," she admitted. I'm just trying to show the kids that I'm capable of being their mother again, that I can handle my life." Her sincerity gave him pause. "Actions speak louder than words. What you do matters more than what you say," he reminded her, feeling a mix of caution and reluctance. "Agreed. I'd like the kids to see me do the work, but I need a chance, Michael," she pressed, vulnerability spilling through her voice. Michael took a moment to parse through his emotions, weighing the balance of a mother reclaiming her role against the harm she had inflicted in his life. "Fine," he relented, "but I'll need to see proof of the changes you're making. We can start with visits on weekends, and we'll take it step by step. I want them to see the progress, but I won't gamble on your promises." "Thank you. I won't let you down, I swear," she replied, genuine relief coloring her tone. As they set terms for visits, Michael felt a bittersweet pang. This was the first step toward repairing their family, but he steeled himself against nostalgia. Time and effort would be needed for Emily to prove she had earned a place back into their children's lives. That weekend, in light of her progress, Michael arranged a family outing for the kids to see their mother, a chance for them to reforge a bond that had been fractured. As the time approached, he felt ominous anticipation knotting in his stomach. The visit took place at a nearby park, and while the sun bathed the ground in warmth, Michael noticed Emily arrive looking begrudgingly different, more composed, wearing a light smile but still wrapped in layers of uncertainty. Clara and Jake, excited as they were, had mixed emotions darting across their faces. "Mom!" Clara yelled, rushing to embrace Emily, her innocence unwavering. Jake followed, more reserved yet curious. Michael observed, weighing their reactions and Emily's demeanor together, cautiously optimistic. "Hey, you two!" Emily beamed, her voice rich with a mother's joy, even as Michael noted the tremor beneath. For the next hour, the quartet played frisbee, shared snacks, and talked intermittently about silly stories, punctuated by laughter. For a brief moment, the air felt lighter. The past was an echo faded by the warmth of the present. As Clara swung from her mother's shoulders and Jake trotted next to them, Michael felt the burden of his protective instincts welling up. There was still much healing to be done, yet he found he could relax, if only for today. But as they settled on a picnic blanket for sandwiches, Emily shifted the conversation. "I want to do better for you all. I'll be dedicating every minute of my time to make things right. You'll see, things will be different moving forward," she asserted, fervor filling her eyes. Michael caught Clara watching every one of Emily's movements, and it struck him how this day could mark a turning point. But he slid in with a reminder, "Just remember, Emily, actions speak louder than words. If you're truly on this path, the kids will sense it. Prove it to them." Emily nodded resolutely, and in that moment, they shared a brief understanding, an acceptance that the road ahead would need fortitude and patience. As the sun dipped lower, Michael felt more assured, planting seeds of cautious hope. Their journey toward reconnection had just begun, 1 week at a time. Arriving home that night, Michael reflected on the fragile comfort of uncertainty. He took a deep breath as he envisioned their future, determined to nurture the children while maintaining boundaries that made his own happiness a priority as well. Sarah caught his eye, a gentle smile tracing her lips as she measured his expression. "How did it go?" she asked softly, her presence grounding him. "Progress," he replied, noting the flicker of wariness in her gaze, "but it'll take time. Just remember, you're not alone in this. I'm here for you," she reassured him, wrapping her arms around him. The warmth of her embrace seemed to suspend his worries. As he sank into the tenderness of their connection, Michael acknowledged that while the past still cast its shadow, the future shimmered with potential, one he was ready to embrace fully, no matter how daunting. In this moment, strength surged through him, a reminder of all they could build together. The weeks that followed the park visit opened a new chapter in Michael's life, a delicate yet determined attempt at balance amid the seesaw of interactions with Emily. She committed to her financial recovery and began attending regular therapy sessions, striving to rebuild her shattered life. For the first time, she was genuinely endeavoring to reclaim her maternal role, and while Michael felt a cautious optimism, he steered clear of delusions. The path toward trust was arduous, and every step needed careful navigation. Saturday afternoons had become the designated family time with Emily, and although the children seemed thrilled to have their mother's presence, each visit presented layers of complexity. Michael's heart ached for them, yet he remained vigilant, reminding himself that protection and accountability were paramount. During visits, he observed how Emily engaged with Clara and Jake, reminding himself to stay neutral, giving space for emotional reconnection while keeping his own boundaries intact. One sunny Saturday, they decided to try their hands at a local art class that incorporated painting for adults and children together. Clara was ecstatic at the thought of splattering colors on canvases, while Jake opted for the cautious approach, nervously hopping between excitement and anxiety. Arriving at the studio surrounded by laughing families and the scent of paint, Michael felt an all-too-familiar weight. The sight of Emily with their children tugged at memories of what once was. For a fleeting moment, he envisioned a perfect family unit, but it quickly reminded him of the fragility of their present. He took a deep breath and steeled himself for the afternoon. As they settled at a large table covered with canvases and brushes, Emily dove right into guiding Clara, doling out encouragement as if every brushstroke mattered, exchanging laughter and enthusiasm. Michael watched cautiously, careful not to let himself get swept away in nostalgia. The past felt too fresh and raw. "Look at this, Dad," Clara exclaimed with glee, smearing vibrant colors across the canvas. Her infectious smile lit the dim studio, and for a moment, everyone was transfixed on the artwork emerging before them. "Nice work. That's going to be a masterpiece," Michael praised, genuinely drawn into the moment. "Mom, look," Clara urged, pulling Emily's attention toward her unexpected creation. Michael noted the spark in Emily's eyes, an earnestness paired with excitement, promising growth. He couldn't help but feel that this new side of her might become a reality. Yet, as the class progressed, Emily started to stumble over questions about colors, making remarks that veered toward insecurities, exposing fissures that hinted at lingering doubts. "Oh, I can't do this right. Why did I think I could?" she murmured, struggling with the pressure to succeed in this new role. Before he realized it, Michael found himself leaning in. "Emily, it's not about doing it right. It's about enjoying the moment with the kids." His voice was steady, not patronizing, an acknowledgement of the complexities they both faced. Despite the laughter and creativity flowing around them, he could see her insecurities creeping back. "It's just hard," Emily confessed, glancing down at her paint-splattered hands, and for a brief moment, he understood the burden she carried. "Life can be hard sometimes, but you're choosing to show up. That alone counts for a lot," he reassured her. As the class continued, he marveled at how the struggle in her voice resonated with the gentleness in Clara and Jake's encouragement. They instinctively reached toward her, loving her, even if the fear of abandonment lingered. A voice in Michael urged him to pull back. This was not the time for unresolved feelings, but he found himself admiring the transformations unfolding. Each splash of color became symbolic of lives intertwined not just by blood but by shared aspiration, hopeful for something brighter. After another hour of laughter and painting, they finally stepped back to admire their creations. Clara's masterpiece boasted vivid primary colors, while Jake created abstract shapes evocative of his emotional landscape, the essence of a child discovering his voice. Emily had crafted a piece with gentle swirls and harmonious shades, an evolving narration of who she could be. "You know, you both can work on art together again. I believe in you, and I think with time, you can make beautiful things just like this," Michael said, acknowledging the triumph in her expression. "Thank you," Emily replied softly, sincerity underscoring her gratitude. "I'm really trying." As they left the studio with arms filled with canvases, Michael at that moment grasped a flickering tension. Hope danced precariously alongside uncertainty. It was proof that they could exist in a shared journey rooted in the gradual growth. Imagining a safe space where his children could flourish became Michael's guiding principle, and with Emily showing commitment, it might evolve into reality. However, as the nights turned into days and weeks again, He recognized a weight that had shifted. There was potential for more than coexistence, the potential for rebuilding trust in a way he hadn't prepared for. Just as Michael felt the tide of hope wash over him, the reality remained. Emily's previous deception loomed large, and while she was attempting to change, the journey would be long and fraught. Then came the call he'd known would eventually ring through. A call from Lisa, tinged with urgency. "Michael, I have news. Emily's debts have risen significantly. She's not sticking to the budget her counselor set, and it's concerning." The revelation felt like a punch to his gut. "What does that mean?" "It means you might need to be prepared for a potential motion in court," Lisa warned. "If she's spiraling back into the patterns that caused her downfall, you need to act to protect the kids and your own legal position." The news sent a wave of cold dread through Michael, darkening the rays of hope for a brief moment. He thought of the glimpses of progress he'd witnessed and how he needed to slow down. Initially, he felt guilt clawing at him, but then clarity crystallized. This was not just about his feelings for Emily. This was about the welfare of their children. "Okay," he replied, his voice now firm. "Let's regroup. We need a strategy." Michael's heart raced as he considered how to address the situation without jeopardizing the delicate dance of rebuilding trust. After all the progress and effort, neither he nor the children could afford to take a step backward. He hung up the phone with a heavy heart, forcing himself to exercise restraint. Emily's journey had come full circle, but now a new chapter awaited, one where accountability would ultimately shape their reality. He knew he must underscore the importance of consistency with Emily without compromising his own values. With resilience and determination guiding him, Michael prepared for the emerging complexity in this tangled web of parenthood and preservation, one that, he hoped, would ultimately yield to clarity and strength for all involved. In the ensuing weeks, the shadow of uncertainty loomed heavier than ever. Michael became increasingly aware that despite Emily's attempts at reform, old habits die hard. The news of her financial struggles shook him, a jarring reminder that the road to recovery was riddled with adversity. The clarity he had gained from their shared moments began to blur, creating a conflict between his hope for her progress and the harsh reality of her circumstances. Michael sat in his living room late one evening, the soft glow of a table lamp illuminating his worried expression. Sarah settled on the couch beside him, delicately placing her hand on his knee. "You've been quiet since the call," she observed, concern gathering in her voice. "What's on your mind?" "I'm just trying to wrap my head around everything," he admitted, letting out a heavy breath. "Emily's little progress feels overshadowed by setbacks. I can't help but worry that the kids will get caught in this mess again. I know you care about them, but you can't carry that burden alone. You've done everything to support them and prioritize their well-being," she reminded him. "You have to hold Emily accountable. This isn't just about her anymore. It involves your children." Her words resonated deeply. He understood that this was indeed about Clara and Jake, and their fragile emotional stability had to remain paramount. "I need to figure out a way to address this without tearing down the progress we've made," he said, almost to himself. "Maybe it's time to have another conversation with Emily," Sarah suggested, her tone tentative yet encouraging. "You could frame it as a check-in, both for her and how it affects the children. That way she understands the stakes without feeling cornered." Michael appreciated Sarah's insight as it reframed his approach. "You're right. Maybe a direct conversation will yield clarity, for her and for me." He felt a surge of determination, deciding to arrange a meeting with Emily for the following weekend. The day of their conversation arrived with unexpected tension simmering beneath the facade of normalcy. Michael, armed with a sense of both compassion and caution, sought to strike the right balance. He focused on how to communicate his concerns without dismissing her efforts to change. As they met at their usual cafe, where the ambiance offered a mix of familiarity and neutrality, he observed Emily's demeanor. She wore a fresh expression, attempting to project confidence, though her eyes shaded with hints of anxiety. "Hey," she offered, glancing around the bustling establishment. "Hey," he replied, settling into the booth across from her. "Thanks for coming, Emily. I wanted to see how you've been doing." "I'm okay, really," she said, but Michael could sense the fissures beneath the surface. "I'm just trying to keep up with everything. The program has been really intense, but I'm committed." Silence hung momentarily between them as he searched for the right words. "I spoke with Lisa recently," he began, observing the immediate change in her expression. "She mentioned you've been struggling with your debts. Is that true?" Emily's composure faltered. "I didn't realize things were so serious," she admitted. "I thought I could manage it. I'm doing all I can." "Emily, you and I both know financial recovery isn't just about willpower. It requires discipline and accountability." "I'm worried you're backtracking again," he responded gently but firmly. "What's going on?" Beneath the layers of practiced cheer, David watched the vulnerability unfold. Emily shifted in her seat, clearly avoiding direct eye contact. "It's just overwhelming, Michael. I feel like I'm being pulled in a million directions. Sometimes I use spending as a way to cope with that stress." Her admission hung in the air, weighing heavily between them. Michael could see the cracks forming, not only in her resolve, but in the world she had constructed. "I get that, but it's not a sustainable way to handle things. What can we do to address this for your sake and the children's?" he pressed, hoping to guide her towards self-reflection without alienating her. "I guess maybe I need another approach," she murmured, visibly shaken. "I thought I was doing better, but I know I haven't truly faced the reality of it all." Michael's heart softened for a moment, recognizing the struggle hidden beneath her bravado. "I only want what's best for you and the kids," he said sincerely. "It's important that they see you functioning in a stable, healthy manner. They love you, but their emotional well-being has to come first." A somber silence permeated the table as Michael watched Emily wrestle with her reflection. It was clear this conversation was a turning point, an opportunity for her to recognize the consequences of her actions and understand that real change required vulnerability and honesty. At last, she nodded slowly. "You're right. I can't keep pretending. I want to be the mom they deserve, the best version of myself. But I'll need help." "We'll find you that help," he replied, pulling out his phone to jot down a few resources and contacts from Lisa's recommendations. "Let's set realistic goals, perhaps smaller steps, like a budget review or additional support groups. How does that sound?" Emily took a breath, her eyes brightening with appreciation. "Thank you, Michael. I want to get this right." As they wrapped up their meeting, Michael felt a flicker of hope. It wouldn't be instantaneous, but acknowledging the weight of her struggle signified a shift. He had laid the groundwork for accountability, a crucial point upon which they could build. Returning home, Michael shared the developments with Sarah, who embraced him tightly. "I'm proud of you for approaching it thoughtfully," she affirmed. "Making sure she understands, while also being clear about how it affects your kids, is key." Over the next few weeks, Emily began to demonstrate tangible efforts to reclaim her stability. Michael, acting as a guiding light rather than a warden, checked in on her progress and rejoiced in every small victory, encouraging her to celebrate the incremental changes as part of a more significant journey. And then one day, the call he had both anticipated and dreaded finally came. Lisa reached him briskly, her tone serious. "Michael, we need to discuss Emily's latest actions. She's applied for multiple loans and has made purchases that raise red flags. These aren't in line with the plan we discussed." Panic surged through him. "What does this mean?" "It means we may need to consider legal action to protect the children. If her fiscal irresponsibility continues, it could jeopardize their well-being," Lisa stated gravely. As the weight of her words settled over him, Michael felt his heart race. Their path was becoming rockier than he had hoped. In this moment, he recognized that alongside issues of trust and healing lay the responsibilities of safeguarding his family, and he was prepared to fight every step of the way. "I'll face this head on," he declared resolutely. "I'll meet with her and make it clear that this isn't just a decision for her. It's about their future." The women's words only solidified his resolve that day. "Know that I'm here for you during the process," she replied softly. Michael hung up and immediately took a deep breath, his mind racing with strategies, decisions, and potential next steps. He felt the battle rejoining. Emily would need to face the consequences of her actions, and he would be there to ensure it was done with compassion, but also fierce accountability. The kids were depending on him, and he would rise to meet the challenge, ready to navigate the tumultuous path ahead once again. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow around the house, Michael's heart raced with a mix of anxiety and determination. He dreaded the confrontation that awaited him, but knew it was necessary to protect his children. Emily had already endured financial setbacks that could jeopardize their custody arrangement. If he didn't intervene, her spiraling could result in chaos that he could no longer allow. After the children went to bed, he steeled himself and dialed Emily's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice tentative. "Michael, what's up? Can we meet? I think we need to discuss some urgent matters regarding your finances," he replied, his tone amiable yet resolute. "What's wrong?" she asked, the concern forming a noticeable tremor in her voice. "Let's talk in person. I'll be at the cafe tomorrow at 10 a.m., he stated firmly, cutting off any further questions. "Please don't be late." The next morning, he arrived early, sitting quietly at a corner table, his mind swirling with a tempest of thoughts. When Emily walked in, there was an air of uncertainty surrounding her, mingling with an attempt at defiance. She approached him with a fragile confidence, the remnants of her better self fighting against the dread of the reality she was living. "Michael?" she greeted as she slid into the seat opposite him, her expression hesitating between wariness and hope. "Emily, let's cut to the chase," he began, shifting the tone of the conversation. "I spoke to Lisa last night. She's concerned about your recent financial behavior. It appears you've taken out new loans and made several purchases that don't align with the recovery plan." The shift in Emily's expression was immediate. A flicker of panic passed through her eyes before she masked it again. "I can explain, "Please don't," he interrupted, keeping his voice calm but firm. "I need you to listen. This isn't just about your life anymore. It's about our children's future and stability." "Michael, you don't understand," Emily pleaded, her voice rising slightly as a defensive instinct kicked in. "I thought I could balance everything, but I'm under so much pressure, it's all overwhelming." He leaned in, locking eyes with her, wishing to convey seriousness rather than anger. "You can't avoid the consequences of your choices anymore. This is not only affecting you, it's impacting Clara and Jake. I won't let them suffer for your mistakes." "It's not fair," she snapped back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I'm trying. I just need a bit more time to get on track." "Time is a luxury we don't have, Emily. You need to own these decisions and their repercussions. You and I both know that." His tone softened, yet he maintained a firm grasp on his resolve. "If you continue this way, Lisa and I will have no choice but to consider legal actions that could jeopardize your visitation rights." Shock washed over her. "Are you serious? You'd do that?" "I don't want to, but I can't sit idly by while you spiral. If you keep making choices that jeopardize your ability to parent, I'll have to do what's necessary to protect them." His heart ached at how deeply he longed for her to succeed, yet he couldn't allow emotions to cloud his judgment. Emily's gaze fell to the table, and for a moment he wondered if she was absorbing the weight of his words. "How can I show you that I'm changing?" she asked softly, voice trembling, almost childlike. Michael took a deep breath and responded, "You need to set up an accountability plan with Lisa that outlines weekly checks on your spending and progress. Can you agree to that? Show us all that you're committed to genuinely turning things around." After a long pause, Emily finally nodded, though her eyes were brimming with uncertainty. "Yes, I'll do it. I want to be better for them, honestly." As they sat in silence, he felt the tension dissipate slightly. Perhaps this was the turning point they needed, where she could accept ownership of her role in their family's dynamics. "Then let's start fresh," he encouraged, his tone shifting to a more supportive note. "We can meet weekly to check in on your progress. I'll do my part to help keep the kids informed and engaged in your journey. Remember, the goal has always been to ensure their emotional safety." "Thank you, Michael," she said, a flicker of genuine gratitude emerging alongside her vulnerability. Let's make this work together. As their meeting closed, Michael felt a growing sense of cautious optimism. While he recognized the challenges ahead, he was equally aware of the importance of standing firm for his children. Every step taken toward accountability was another building block towards stability. The days turned into weeks as the new arrangement unfolded. Emily began to attend meetings with both Lisa and financial advisors, resulting in visible changes. She even joined a local support group where she could share experiences and challenges with others facing similar struggles. Despite the bumps along the way, her efforts became apparent during their weekend visits. Clara and Jake started to witness their mother's transformation, a gradual but undeniable shift toward a healthier state of being. These changes provided the much-needed reassurance that had previously evaded them, allowing their relationship to flourish amidst the trials. As spring turned into summer, Michael always accompanied Emily to the park to reunite with the kids. While they played, he frequently found moments to engage in supportive discussions with her about their shared responsibilities as parents. He made sure to emphasize the significance of accountability and consistency at every turn. However, he was continuously reminded that the road ahead was more about building layers of trust than anything else. One evening, after another fulfilling family day, Michael returned home. The laughter from Clara and Jake echoed in his heart even as the evening calm began to settle. He knew he would need to remain vigilant, aware of how fragile this newfound progress could be. Sarah, who had prepared dinner preemptively, waved him over as he entered. "How did it go today?" she asked, noticing the thoughtful expression on his face. "It went, well, actually," he replied, savoring the moment of clarity. "Emily's making strides, participating diligently in her programs. We concluded that she would set up check-ins with Lisa to make sure she stays accountable." "That's great to hear. I'm so proud of you for managing this with her." "You have been a good influence," she remarked, genuine pride sparking in her eyes. He rubbed the back of his neck, reflecting on the ongoing complexities. "Let's just hope she keeps it up. I want to believe in her, but it's still hard." Sarah approached, wrapping her arms around him, warm with affection. "You're doing everything you can, and that's what matters. Sooner or later, trust will follow if she proves her commitment." As evening settled in, he grinned, feeling a renewed sense of hope. They had overcome numerous hurdles and weathered storms that could have easily swallowed them whole. Yet, through hard work, accountability, and the love that bound them together, they were forging a path toward a brighter future, one that glimmered with promise against the uncertainties of the past. Michael knew they were embarking on a journey filled with many chapters yet to unfold, but he was ready, steadfast, and committed to forging ahead one step at a time.